has to sail through calm waters, at times rough waters, with limited resources,
and we must show that same support. While the work we do within Canada is extremely important to us, CTC is equally committed to good global citizenship. May 2014 will mark 5 years since, according to UN statistics, 40 to 70,000 Tamils were massacred during the final stages of the war. Many abuses, unfortunately, continue to this day. In this way, CTC will continue to fight for the human rights of Tamils in Sri Lanka, whether by attending multilateral meetings, partnering and consulting with various groups and elected Tamil representatives, currently the TNA in Sri Lanka, and meeting government officials in Ottawa, Geneva, and elsewhere around the world. We have had much support in this regard, and we wish to specifically thank all federal parties in Canada, and particularly our Prime Minister, Harper, and Foreign Minister Baird for their strong stance on CHOGM. 2004 will be a big year for us. For the first time in history, Sri Lanka will be a special agenda item at the 25th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva this March.
Successfully advocate for Tamil Canadians for well over a decade. Now this is an achievement that every one of us in the room can be proud of. 2013 was a milestone year for the Canadian Tamil Congress. First was the amazing work accomplished by CTC and the United Nations. It is estimated that up to 70,000 civilians were massacred during the final months of the war in 2009. 5 years on, information about these and other startling human rights violations are finally emerging. These reports have been met by almost complete denial by the Sri Lankan regime, which still holds power today. Gary Anandasangari, Rani Salvaraja, and Karthika Thavaraj addressed the 22nd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. The CTC advocacy team actively lobbied various governments and groups at the UN to support the passage of a resolution on accountability in Sri Lanka. I am very pleased to report back to you that this resolution did pass in March 2013.
Here again, and first time as Premier, thank you for inviting me. And I'm very proud to be joined by a number of members of my caucus. The Honourable Brad Dogood, Minister of Training Colleges and Universities. Tracy McCharles is here, who's the Minister of Consumer Services.
As Prime Minister Harper said, even before Colombo, quote, "It's clear the Sri Lankan government has failed to uphold the Commonwealth's core values, which are cherished by all Canadians." And I don't think any of us will forget those images of the Rajapaksas trying to wine and dine international leaders, trying to deflect attention from these issues that we will not ignore. But then there was my colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Deepak O'Brien. On the ground, refused a flight to the north. He drove from the Vani back to Colombo, and he stopped in one of those killing fields and put out a small memorial on behalf of all of us as Canadians.
All of us, to bring focus to where it belongs, so our families can prosper, and so that our country could shine once again in the international arena. He's a husband, father, teacher, passionate Canadian, and a friend. And he is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and the future Prime Minister.
that brought the Tamil community here in the first place, and that must remain front of mind today. Make no mistake, the human rights violations committed by the Sri Lankan government are deplorable and warrant strict condemnation from the international community. Canada and Canadians will not stand for it. In Sri Lanka, the democratic process has been consistently undermined, and the return to democracy seems more and more difficult as Sri Lankan government continues to stifle critics and journalists. And when democracy is not allowed to flourish, all Sri Lankans suffer. It is clear then that there can be no steps towards democracy that do not include all Sri Lankans in the process. If we hope to see truth and reconciliation and a democratization of Sri Lanka, it must be done with unity. Reconciliation cannot take place with some form of accountability. In March, the United Nations Human Rights Council will meet in Geneva. The time is now for an international, independent investigation and inquiry into war crimes and crimes against humanity during the final period of the Civil War.
We can do here at home. I commend Prime Minister Harper and my good friend, Minister John Baird, in boycotting the Commonwealth Conference in Sri Lanka to send the right message on behalf of Canadians. But Sean and Ken, Anita, and my team, we can play a role in Ontario too. I know the Premier was here earlier as well tonight. And I thought it was a great venue to have the opportunity to make an announcement about when the legislature resumes in a few weeks in February. I thought the annual Canadian Tamil Congress Dinner was the appropriate occasion to announce that on the first day that the House comes back, a member of our caucus will introduce a bill to officially declare the month of January Tamil Heritage Month right across our province of Ontario.
Someone who understands your needs, who cares for your dreams, who shares your emotions.
Are you getting $1 million advice? ஸ்ரீதரன் துரைராஜாவின் முகாமைத்துவத்தில் லைஃப் 100 காப்புறுதி திட்டங்கள் ஏராளம். உங்களுக்கேற்ற தெரிவுகளை சிறந்த நிறுவனங்களில் இருந்து பெற்றுத்தர லைஃப் 100 முகவர்களாக இணைந்து கொள்ள லைஃப் 100.
Professor Scott currently serves as a member of Parliament for Toronto Danforth, and until his election he was a professor of law at Osgoode Hall Law School, and prior to that, Professor of Law at the University of Toronto. As a human rights lawyer, Professor Scott has spent years promoting justice in places like Sri Lanka, South Africa, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He has also been a strong advocate on anti-poverty issues and Aboriginal rights. As part of his stellar career in human rights law, Professor Scott served as an advisor to the African National Congress during its period in exile during the apartheid era. He was also closely involved in the development of key aspects of the current South African Constitution. To Tamil Canadians, however, Professor Scott has been more than a parliamentarian and more than just a lawyer. He has been a dear friend. A dear friend who has supported us during difficult times and continues to engage with us till this very day. He co-founded the Sri Lanka Campaign for Peace and Justice and played an active role on its advisory council until stepping down when elected to Parliament. Over the years, Professor Scott has stood in solidarity with oppressed people of the world. He has been extremely vocal both on and off Parliament Hill, and for that we are forever grateful. Craig, you are truly an inspiration for human rights lawyers everywhere. You have dedicated your life to an incredible display of leadership and devotion to the betterment of the global community. And we as Tamil Canadians are proud to have a friend like you. We look forward to standing with you in your fight to defend human rights worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the recipient of this year's Leader for Change Award, Professor Craig Scott.
Offering the little bit of help I've been able to over the years is really a question of solidarity with the real leaders in Sri Lanka and in the diaspora who have been there, who understand far more than I can the reality of suffering and of exile. And that includes youth. Radhika, as you know, came to Canada at a very young age and
is extremely proud to present the 2014 Award for Service Excellence to Jaffna Udayan newspaper and its man behind the wheel, esteemed journalist Mr. Ganamayan Nathan. For the freedom of expression of our people. The loss can never be replaced. At this moment, I salute their sacrifice and recognize the brave and hard-working Udayan team of journalists and staff in Jaffna. It was just a few weeks ago, British Prime Minister.
And friends, today I'm happy to announce that we're donating $20,000 through CTC to the Holiday Working Organization.
I look at this celebration as part of their success story and a reflection of the rich culture and ethical behavior of our people. I consider it appropriate to express some views on the functioning of the recently inaugurated Northern Council, since I am